Universalist Church of Berkeley on this glorious Sunday morning. Thank you for joining me in this cave rather than sitting outside in the sunshine. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You are so welcome here. If you jumped out of bed this morning, delighted to greet the day, you are confusing, but you are welcome here. If you had to drag yourself here, unsure if you would make it, you are welcome here. But more than being welcome here, you are needed here. We need you here. If this is your first morning, we need you here. If you have been coming here longer than me, which is hard, we need you here. And more than being welcome here and more than being needed here, you are so badly wanted here. Your smiling or weary face behind your mask, your helping hands, your loving heart. You are welcome here. You are needed here. And you are wanted here. So come, let us worship together.
morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berkeley. Welcome to all of you sitting here in the sanctuary, but also to everyone at home watching on live stream. This is a welcoming congregation, and we're always working on how to better welcome and care for one another. If this is your first time here, we're so glad you're here. And whoever you are, we welcome you in the fullness of who you are. Let me just pause and say thank you to the Gamelan Ensemble for such beautiful music. Daniel has invited anyone who is interested to see the instruments up close and to ask about them, learn about them. You're welcome to come up after service because they'll be here. As we begin, and as has become our ritual of expressing our indebtedness to the peoples who came to this, who were here before we were, we acknowledge that this church occupies land in Huichin, the unceded territory of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people. We understand that we continue to benefit from the seizure and occupation of this land. We acknowledge and embrace our responsibility to take restorative action. We affirm that this is deeply felt and commit our congregation to be in right relationship with Indigenous communities, aligning in solidarity, supporting Indigenous projects, and caring properly for the land. Today, we welcome to our pulpit Reverend Aija Simpson-Newbury. Actually, what we should do is open our arms and say, "Welcome home." Reverend Aija was raised in and ordained by this congregation. Until 2021, she served the UU congregation in Boiling Springs, Pennsylvania. You might know her better as Carrie Simpson and Cynthia Aphrodite's daughter. Or if you've been talking with Carrie recently, Theo's mom. Reverend Aija reports that her current ministry is a work in progress, so please check back with her on that. Let me just comment that during the service, the poems that are read were selected by Reverend Aija, and the one in the middle of the service was going to be read by Bob Moore, but he has been called to the RE duty, and in his place, Ann Greenwood will read. So that'll explain the discrepancy on the screen when we get to that point. Now, this morning we're going to ask Tom Tripp to light the chalice flame for us. And we're going to light the chalice flame with two poems, or one poem by Antonio Machado, first in the Spanish, original Spanish, read by Sandy Portillo Robbins, and then the English translation.
Caminante, son tus huellas el camino y nada más. Caminante, no hay camino, se hace camino al andar. Al andar se hace el camino y al volver la vista atrás se ve la senda que nunca se ha de volver a pisar. Caminante, no hay camino sino estelas en el mar.
Traveler, your footprints are the only road, nothing else. Traveler, there is no road. You make your own path as you walk. As you walk, you make your own road. And when you look back, you see the path you will never travel again. Traveler, there is no road, only a ship's wake on the sea. We also pause to remind ourselves of some of the foundations of resilience. With Tom, we light a candle of courage, a candle of acts of service, a candle of fellowship, and a candle of hope. May we find and cultivate these foundations of resilience in ourselves and in one another. Now please rise in body or spirit and join in our singing our opening song, One More Step. It is 168 in the gray hymnal. The words will be on the screen. Please remain standing. Please join me in saying our covenant. Love guides this church. The quest for truth and justice is its common purpose. To give thanks, listen deeply, speak with care, honor our differences, and seek and grant forgiveness. These things we covenant with one another. Please be seated.
Amen.
So, it has been referenced already a couple times, and will be probably referenced a couple more times, that I am, as Lonnie said this morning, a daughter of the church. And I, in retrospect, felt my first call to the ministry sitting on these steps during a time for all ages. Which means I take the time for all ages very seriously. And by very seriously, what I mean is we must make a huge mess and have as much fun as humanly possible. So I'm going to invite the children to come up if they would like to join me. But I'm going to take a point of long-standing privilege and fuss at some of you to come up as well. Because I am trying to build a forest, so I'm going to need some trees. So if you have functional knees or are willing to adapt, please come up for a story. And as you come up, I want you to take a handful of leaves and pass them along. So we're going to be standing and sitting and squatting, hence the functional knees, because I want to tell you a story about a little tree. And so I'm going to need some little trees. So everyone claim leaves. Now the only rule of this exercise is you have to hold your leaves touching your body. Now, if you thought staying in the pews was going to excuse you from this exercise, it just means you don't get to have leaves. Please stand as you are willing and able. Find a part of your body to hold as though you had leaves. And we are going to be little trees. So, get as low as you can go, which for me is not very low right now. I'm going to tell you a story about a little tree. There was a little tree. She loved listening to the wind, having the birds play in her canopy. She was a tiny little tree who loved her friends, and she loved her leaves. And when fall came, she was afraid to let go of her leaves. So she held them tight. The other trees let their leaves go and were able to get a little bigger. But the little tree, that's us, kept her leaves held really tight. She tried to grow holding her leaves. So I'm going to ask you, try to grow, but try to go holding your leaves to yourself. See how big you can get. Can you grow a little? Ugh, it's hard. And every year, the other trees would let their leaves grow and they'd get a little bigger. And the little tree stayed small. And she wanted to get bigger. She wanted to feel the wind in her hair, but she was afraid to let her leaves go. So what do you think we should do when we're scared? Anyone have things they're afraid to let go of? Try something new. That was the answer I was hunting for. Thank you very much. It's as though I planted you here. What else can we do if we're scared? Can we hold hands with someone we care about? Can we reach out to people we care about? Okay, so I think it's time for us to be brave, little trees, which means reaching out our hands and our leaves and flinging them in. 3, 2, 1. Big trees! Look at my glorious forest. Okay. Make as big a movement as you can to sky, up, 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 out, out, out. Grab hands if you feel comfortable. And with that, dance your way to the atrium where I believe your teachers are waiting for you. And the adults can sit back down if they must. Go, big glorious trees. Anyone need a hand? And we'll sing, I think. No, we'll not sing. This is how you can tell it's been a while. So now that I have gotten us energized and standing up, it's time to sit down and be quiet. I would invite you, find the space that your body wants to rest. If you feel comfortable planting your feet on the ground, imagining your roots going down deep now that we've flung off our leaves, I'd invite you to enter into a time of quiet, a time of silence, or as much silence as we get surrounded by other people. Maybe breathe in and listen to the breaths around you. Settle into your pew. Listen to the long, familiar creaks as we shift and settle. And let us find a time of peace amongst us. There is a love holding 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 all we love. There is a love holding all we love. There is a love holding all we love. There is a love holding all. There is a love holding all. There is a love holding all. We rest in this love. We can rest in this love. We can rest in this love if only we would let ourselves. If only we would believe it was there. We build a love strong enough to hold everyone here, to hold everyone we love, to hold the world. Every time we reach out, every time we admit we're scared, every time we tell someone we love them, or tell someone we're mad at them but manage to do it with love, we build a love. We build a love that is the strongest thing in the world if we believe in it, and disappears entirely if we imagine it's not there. There's a love waiting to hold you. You need only believe it is there. Amen. Please remain seated. Hymn number 1011, Return Again.
When I learned that Reverend Aija was to be our guest minister today, I asked her how I might complement her sermon. She said she was exploring the subject of community. I immediately thought of this community, and our year-long search for a new minister. During the first half of the year, we, our search community, took a deep dive into self-reflection and dialogue, and in the survey and many focus groups, so that we could tell our story to all the potential ministers out there looking for a congregation. The second half of the year, for all of you except for the search committee itself, it has been a time of waiting, perhaps mounting impatience. Thankfully, our search process is coming to completion during the next 3 weeks, beginning with our announcement of our finalist candidate later in this service. But coming back to the subject of community, what is most significant is that the story about ourselves that we put out to the world, who we are, what we want to be, put community at the centerpiece. It was very clear in the survey data. 61% of respondents said that belonging to community was their most favorite thing about UUCB. 55% chose fostering and developing community as the most important function of the church. And 68% saw the top role of the minister as bringing people together and facilitating connections throughout the community. But what is the community we cherish and aspire to? It is not just the common dictionary definition of community, namely a group of people having the same place of living or having in common particular characteristics, interests, or goals. We are or aspire to more, what we sometimes call a beloved community. But what is this more? It's hard to describe or put your finger on. I believe it involves something like the interhuman connection that Martin Buber wrote about, elucidating the I-thou relationship. Being part of our beloved community here entails that we each make claims upon each other and accept them. To pay attention, listen deeply, seek to understand, share ourselves, care for one another, celebrate each other's happiness, and accompany each other through sorrows. Some of these dimensions of this deep interhuman connectedness are captured in our covenant, but it's not a done deal. We don't always achieve what we aspire to. We fall short, we lapse, may become self-absorbed and actively resist. And then we need to call out to each other, refocus, and renew our intention. At times, our life and community can be fraught, uncertain, anxious. It's not hard to imagine the reasons. Participating fully in a community such as ours challenges us to be honest, to be known for who we are, to be depended on, and to depend on others. It challenges us to be brave in our vulnerability. So no wonder we sometimes hold back and resist. So our beloved community is not something static. It is alive and is as vital as the mutual presence and reciprocal commitments we bring together to it. I've come to think of it as dynamic belonging. These thoughts take me back to a memory from September 1990. It was the first day of the school year. and I was beginning an assignment as school psychologist at Cragmont Elementary School, just off Spruce Street down in North Berkeley. Our principal was addressing a gathering of all the students, and she reached out to the kindergarten kids in welcoming. Her words, for me, rang like a clear bell. She said, "This is your new school. You belong to us, and we belong to you. In this community, you belong to me, and I belong to you. Let it be so." And
fear. It is said that before entering the sea, a river trembles with fear. She looks back at the path she has traveled, from the peaks of the mountains, the long winding road across forests and villages, and in front of her, she sees an ocean so vast that to enter there seems nothing more than to disappear forever. But there is no other way. The river can't go back. Nobody can go back. To go back is impossible in existence. The river needs to take the risk of entering the ocean, because only then will fear disappear. Because that's where the river will know it's not about disappearing into the ocean, but on becoming the ocean. Becoming the ocean.
I was stuck, trapped, felt like there was nowhere to go. It was 2 years into this ongoing pandemic that we are all learning to live with. And I felt more trapped than I had in month 2, when we were all still washing our groceries when they arrived. I felt stuck between the world as I was told it was becoming again. A return to the world as it had been, which felt both too soon and too late. The world was not returning to what it had been, and for many people I loved, it couldn't be something new again. I was told that everything was going back to normal. And as I look out at your beautiful masked faces a whole year after that, clearly we were premature. I was told things were going back to normal, but I knew they weren't. I knew it wasn't the same. I knew beloveds who were immunocompromised. I knew my 2-year-old unvaccinatable son could not return to normal. And at the risk of interrupting my flow, I know my sound is not quite right, yeah? Some sort of reverb happening. Do you guys need me back on the chancel? Slightly unstuck, perhaps. I knew my world wasn't going back to normal. But the world as it had been for the last 2 years was feeling woefully inadequate. All that time inside, careful, caring, was starting to wear thin. I felt stuck between the world as I wanted it to be, the world I was being told it could be, and the world as it actually seemed to exist. I had a fight with my wife. Any of you fight with loved ones during the pandemic? Any of you in the middle of a fight with loved ones about the pandemic? One day she said casually, well, you know, if we had to wear masks to grocery stores for the rest of our lives, that wouldn't be the worst thing. And I just about lost my mind. And the thing is, in terms of the hard things that people have to do, in terms of the hard things that I have had to do, wearing a mask at the grocery store is not that hard. And yet, in that moment, it felt representative of everything we had lost, of everything that wasn't the way I wanted it to be. I think all of us found ourselves in the midst of these painful conversations where, in retrospect, no one was right and no one was wrong. It was just hard. And it was easier to be mad at other people and say, why aren't you doing it the way I would do it, than to just deal with the fact that things were just hard. So I was stuck, and it was hard. And look, I'm a minister. I have excellent tools for dealing with a spiritual crisis, which is what I was having, with perhaps a tinge of a midlife crisis, but we can talk about that some other time. I have excellent tools. See a spiritual counselor, go for a walk in the woods, talk to the people you love, do a gratitude journal, a spiritual practice that has never helped anyone in crisis ever. Interestingly, when you're not in crisis, super helpful. I had all of these amazing tools, and I used some of them. And then I ran away from home. My wife and I sold our house, packed up all of our stuff, packed up all of our son's stuff, and hit the road. The idea was that we would see all of the people we loved, all of the people we had been missing in this COVID time, that we would refill our cups of love and connection that had felt so empty in those past years. And so we drove down to New Orleans, my original home, because I didn't land here till I was 3, aged even. We drove down to New Orleans, and my son, a COVID baby, got swept up into a pack of cousins. Before that, I'm not sure he really believed other children existed. And he was confused, but game. My wife and I went to the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival and simultaneously burst into tears when the crowd started to sing along. And the stories we'd told ourselves for 2 years that singing hymns in our own homes over Zoom was like enough seemed clearly wrong. After a decade in central Pennsylvania, I had Cajun food again, and my tongue came alive. And then we drove up to Vermont. We went to farm stands and learned through trial and error which creeks had a giardia risk, so oops. But it felt like we could take a deep breath for the first time in years. We settled in and settled down and communed with nature, which those of you who know me know is not really my strongest skill, but I'm working on it. We drove across the country visiting our cousins, building connections like stringing pearls, one more beautiful than the next, along a necklace. Drove through Navajo land that was so breathtaking that I almost could ignore the fact that I had to pee for like 5 hours straight. There's nowhere to stop if you're ever driving. Go when you can. It was amazing. It was beautiful. And then we landed here in the welcoming arms of my parents and their entourage, some of whom are here today. Thank you, everyone. And it was wonderful because we were tired. Turns out that life-changing road trips require quite a lot of work. We were tired. And also, I think we were lonely. We went on this amazing trip. We visited these people we loved, and then we left. My son played with all of his cousins, and then we got back on the road. They're still there, entwining their lives more deeply together. We went to Vermont, and just when we knew the difference between the road stands that had like the good tomatoes versus the road stands that had the really good tomatoes, we left. We left our grandparents and our friends. We stayed up late talking to our cousins and our friends along the road, and then the next morning, we packed the Subaru, and we got on the road. We left, and we left, and we left. And I think what we thought would happen, I think what everyone thought would happen, is we would fall in love with one of these communities, and we would stay. But instead, we fell in love with these communities, and we left. I went to UU churches all over the country, imagined what it would be like to be part of them, and then I didn't come back. I saw family and friends, and then I went somewhere else. And there were good reasons for this. We had places to go. We had a plan. We all have plans. We can't interrupt our plans. And we had other people to see, other people we loved, other places we wanted to be. There were other communities waiting for us. But maybe, even more than that, what's true is that there wasn't a community where the world would be different than the one we left. There was no perfect place. There was no place that was going to fill all of our needs. There was no place and no time that was going to keep us from wanting to see other people, wanting to be other places, and wanting to have different lives. Maybe you've done this. Skirted the edge of communities, thought about committing, and then thought about all the really good reasons not to. It's scary to say, this is my place, and these are my people. It's scary to let go of the dream of what your life might be like. And yet, this is all we have, the places we choose, the people we commit to. The problem is not with the place. The spiritual crisis and the difficulty is not because we have not found the place that is right, the people who are right, the community that is right, the minister that is right. It is because we haven't settled in, we haven't stepped in, we haven't jumped into the ocean. Now, this might be the moment for me to tell you what place we have jumped into, but we haven't, so it's a work in progress. But you will see me here sometimes, stepping my toe into this ocean that I have been part of for so long. And you, all of you, are at a moment of ocean making, of commitment making, of looking at each other and saying, yes, these are our people and this is my place. The poet Rumi says, there's a secret medicine available. Look into the face of those who you love, those who you care about, those who have been waiting for you. We are all of us trying to find our place. Some of you have settled in here. Some of you are not sure. But wherever we land, the decision is ours to settle fully, to jump into the ocean, or to just keep skirting around, waiting to make land. Wherever you are on your journey, I hope you are ready to jump. May it be so. Amen.
We invite you now to make an offering. In this way, each of us has the opportunity to contribute to the dynamic and vitality of our community. We are continuing to conduct the offering without passing the plate. Instead, you can give either electronically by scanning the QR code on the back of your badge, or you can put a cash or check donation into the donation envelope and place it in the donation box in the atrium. On the envelope, please mark it either offering plate or pledge. Each week, half of our offering plate is shared with a nonprofit Good Neighbor organization recommended by our Social Justice Council. We are grateful you have continued to practice generosity with both the church and our good neighbors through these difficult years. Your offering is valuable, is of any value, is always received with gratitude. Our good neighbor for this month is the Women's Cancer Resource Center. It provides equitable access to cancer information and support and care. They help women with cancer improve their quality of life through education, supportive services, and practical assistance. They serve people with any form of cancer from all backgrounds, economic levels, and ethnicities. Their clients include people with new diagnoses, people in remission, living with metastatic cancer, and those receiving end-of-life care. Thank you.
Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away. O my dove that dwelleth in the clefts of the rock, in the covert of a steep place, let me see thy countenance, let me hear thy voice, for sweet is thy voice, and thy countenance is comely.
Please join me in dedicating our offering. We dedicate our offering and ourselves to the mission of this congregation to create loving community, inspire spiritual growth, and encourage lives of integrity, joy, and service. It's been good to be here today. Before we shift to our coffee hour, may I remind you to check out all of the things that are available in our congregation by exploring our website, uc.org. There you will find a link in news to the week ahead, our weekly email newsletter, which includes a list of activities, announcements, and contact information. So today we have a number of important announcements. The first one concerns a wonderful music event coming up next Saturday, April 22nd, and Brian is going to tell us about that.
Good morning. You heard a little bit of music by Mariana Martinez today. She was a friend and colleague of Mozart. She knew all the people, all the great people of her time. She was truly a remarkable woman and famous, most famous. She was a virtuoso pianist and singer, but most famous as a composer. Her music is only recently becoming more familiar, and we're going to perform with the Kensington Symphony her complete Dixit Dominus, which is a fascinating and beautiful piece. It's a fundraiser for the Unitarian Universalist Church, our church, for the general fund, and we'll also be singing We Would Be One, unlike the way you've heard it before. It will be with full orchestra, the entire Finlandia, and then we'll join in for the last part. That's Saturday night. It'll be live streamed and in person. This coming Sunday, today at 3 o'clock, Michelle Walike will be singing a recital in the Fireside Room. It's going to be a beautiful and personal program which has some section titles like Now I Become Myself and Dizzy, Lovely, Troublesome Love. I think you'll really enjoy it.
Thanks, Brian. Our second announcement. On Friday evening, this Friday evening, the day before the concert, April 21st at 7 p.m., UUCB's Climate Justice Committee and Social Justice Council will sponsor a screening of the visionary 2019 film 2040, aimed at a broad audience, including children and their families. This hopeful film encourages individuals to join the global regeneration movement. RSVP on our website. Third announcement, UUCB needs pledges in order to plan our 2023-24 budget. It's great to see pledges coming in. Please complete your pledge as soon as you can if you haven't already. And if you prefer to use a paper pledge form, you can turn it in at the stewardship table in the atrium. Be sure to check out the Lego chalice also. Each week we place more Lego bricks to represent our progress. Fourth announcement, we're creating a memory book for Reverend Michelle. So stop by at the table in the atrium to find out more about it and how you can participate. Finally, the Ministerial Search Committee has a special announcement.
We are delighted we can finally share the name of our final candidate. As a search committee, we were entrusted by you to find a minister who would nurture our souls, feed our spirits, and spark our intellect. As you know, we had many fine applicants and 3 outstanding pre-candidates. Even so, there was one person we truly feel is a remarkable fit for UUCB. He is someone some of you are already familiar with, Reverend Marcus Liefert.
Reverend Marcus was an intern minister here at UUCB 10 years ago. In those intervening years, he gained experience as he progressed along this spiritual and professional path. He served a large congregation in Rochester, New York, was a senior minister in West Vancouver, Canada, and for the last 5 years is serving as a developmental minister at the UU congregation in Marin. He is a standout in every area people said is important: inspiring sermons, pastoral care, and someone who will see us, get to know us, and embrace us. You will have a chance to become acquainted or reacquainted with him during Candidating Week, April 30th to May 7th.
We invite you to bring the openness and spirit of welcoming we all share as a congregation in getting to know him as the amazing and experienced minister he has become. Many of you attended the Beyond Categorical Thinking workshop last fall. In fact, so many of you attended that it was a huge point in our favor among the many candidates because it shows a congregation that is open to letting go of preconceptions. One of the things we took away from the workshop is that there are different kinds of diversity and to be open to the spectrum of identities our next minister might hold.
We feel fortunate to have a candidate who has so much heart and soul, integrity and vision, and depth of experience. We feel honored that he has also chosen us. In the meantime, look for an email announcement today that includes a message from Reverend Marcus and an invitation to visit his website so you can get to see what he's all about and what he's been up to in the past 10 years.
In the atrium at the MSC table today, we have a drawing of a tree. We invite you to add some beautiful dots to the tree to represent the way you have participated in the search process so far. Some ways you might have participated include reading MSC news announcements, completing the survey, attending focus groups, cottage meetings, and workshops, sharing words of encouragement with the MSC. It can be said a picture speaks 1,000 words. We're pretty sure our collected efforts number far more than 1,000.
Information about Candidating Week can be found in the week ahead, is on the UUCB website, and we have signups at the search table starting today and next Sunday. Please stop by our table to learn more about the art project and chat. Thank you.
Now please rise in body or spirit and join in singing our closing song, Love Will Guide Us. It's number 131 in the Great Hymnal, and the words will be on the screen.
We come together. We come together in this space, in this place, in this beloved community because we need each other more than we can possibly know. In our moments of greatest joy and our moments of deepest disappointment, we need each other so badly. We need to know there are people waiting for us. So go out into this day, into this week, into this life, and into this world, knowing that you will never be alone. There are people waiting to receive you, waiting to care for you, to celebrate with you, to magnify your joy and lessen your sorrow. Go in peace. Make the good kind of trouble. Come back and tell us all about it. We'll be waiting. Amen.